Hello, mentors and doulas. This month you'll be trying out a new skill, which will be a courageous and compassionate excavation of fears. One of the ways I like to begin talking about fear with parents is to do an assessment of what their current beliefs are about fear. I might ask them what they've heard about fear in pregnancy and birth, because there are a variety of attitudes and beliefs about it. Some people will say, I've heard that it's normal, and some people will say that if you think about things that you're fearing, that you're inviting them into your life, or that it is, problematic, that it does not align with birth, that sort of thing. And so part of the work of setting up this conversation may be to help understand the usefulness of discussing fears. Now, this can be done by talking about avoidance and the effects on the body and on the psyche that avoidance have, the way that it takes up a lot of energy to be in avoidance of something. You might get more ideas from the book, Craft of the Warrior. And I also like to tell people about a study that was done with college students in the past, where they had half of the students write down only the positive things they were anticipating in their week, and the other half, they just wrote down everything that they were anticipating. And it turned out that the positive thinkers had a really bad week because they didn't get a chance to explore how they might cope with unwished for events. So sometimes we have to prime the pump a little bit to set it up so that people are even willing to go there, to talk about what their fears, concerns, and worries are going into birth. Now, the next thing that you want to do is have them identify a fear that they'd like to discuss. And I like to use a variety of words besides fear, right? A fear, a worry, a concern, something that they really are hoping won't happen, an unwished for event, or something they don't know how they would get through it or don't know how they would cope with. And I might have them write down a few different ideas so they don't feel like they have to pick the one, but then I am going to make them pick the one. I might ask them which one is most asking for attention, or which one feels most heavy when you hold each of those concerns in your hands. And it's important in this moment to help them narrow that down to one snapshot, right? One image or one short video that they see in their mind when they think about this fear, because people tend to be very scattered, and they may start talking about this concern and that concern and the other concern, or not have a very focused picture in their mind. If their fear is a cesarean, that's not a snapshot, right? That's actually like an hour or so long process. It could be the moment they find out they will need a cesarean, the moment they cross the threshold into the operating room, the moment that the surgery begins, right? So help your clients narrow it down to choose just one snapshot moment, one image that they see in their mind when they imagine this worry of theirs. Now, part of solution-focused dialogue is ascertaining where the person is today, their current state, and where they want to be, their desired state, okay? So for the beginning of this excavation, we are figuring out what their current state is. So it might be an exploration of how it's showing up in their life now, what it's keeping them from doing, right? And in the demo video, you can see that the mom was talking about it's keeping her from really preparing for birth and reaching out for support for her birth, right? So that is her current state. Her desired state is something else. Her desired state is that she is starting to prepare, and she is starting to even allow herself to get excited for this upcoming birth, right? Another thing that we want to find out is the belief that the person ties to this unwished for event about themselves, not about other people, but about themselves. So when they imagine themselves in that scenario, what are they telling themselves about themselves? You can even give examples like, I am weak, I'm unworthy, I'm not enough. When you find the one that really feels true for you, you'll likely feel a shift in your body. It may be a sinking in your stomach or a tightness in your throat, right? That's your body giving you a hit, giving you a response that this is the belief that's holding you back when you think about this worry. Now, between the current state and the desired state, there is a bridge, right? And we cannot solve problems from the same level of consciousness from which they were created. So for the bridge, I actually like to step away from that scenario, which you'll hear in the demo video, where I talk about the way that fear manifests in the body for animals in the wild, and the way that it can manifest in the body in humans, right? And that when people feel immobilized, when they freeze, when they collapse, they're more likely to suffer trauma. So one of the goals then of this excavation, the major goal of this excavation, is to imagine one small step that they could take, one small step forward to show up on behalf of themselves, their partner, their baby, and without attachment to outcome. So with this reduction in trauma that comes with taking action, it's not attached to outcome. It doesn't even have to change the way the scenario plays out or save the day in order to reduce the trauma or the amount of trauma or likelihood of trauma that a person experiences. Isn't that amazing? And so that is the bridge, right? To help them imagine these animals, right? Imagine the physiology of the brain and what's happening within the body when they're able to take action. So that when they circle back to that moment, now they're going back to that same level of consciousness. They've tapped into something. Their inner hunter or huntress is tuned into some different kind of imagery in their brain. And that allows them to look at the snapshot in a new way, right? And now your invitation to them is to imagine one small step forward that they could take. Not that would change the outcome, right? But just a way that they could show up on their own behalf, whether that was holding their partner's hand in that moment, or taking a deep breath, right? Or asking a question. Any of these could be ways that they show up for themselves in that moment. And then what you'll want to harness is figuring out what attribute it would take to take that small step. Because in the current state of consciousness, that is not accessible, right? But when they're starting to explore, suddenly some different attributes start to pop into the realm of possibility. So perhaps it would be gentleness or kindness or self-compassion, right? You want to get them to identify what that attribute is, and then bring that attribute back to the snapshot image. And notice now what is changing about that belief. Does I am weak, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, does that still fit? Or does the more compassionate part of yourself know something else to be true? Now, if they get stuck here, I might ask people what they would like to believe is more true in that moment. Sometimes it's hard to just come up with that new belief. So if they stumble with it, it's okay. I just kind of sidestep it, the fact that they don't believe it yet, and say, well, what would you like to be telling yourself is more true about you in that moment? And what might you begin to notice when you implant that new belief into your life in all of the places, not just around birth, where your brain wants to tell you that you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not big enough, you don't have enough resources, right? When your brain is instead saying, I'm worthy, I'm good enough, I'm doing my best, I'm a mother, a father, a parent. What do you suppose might begin to change in your day-to-day actions? And that is part of the preparation for birth as an initiation, right? It's, yes, it's learning things, it's practicing positions, it's doing ice contractions, but it's also practicing a new way of being that expands the possibilities for who you are allowed to be in the world and who the rule keeper will allow you to be, right? When you begin to push back against those rules and live a new truth for yourself. That is truly the preparation for birth as a rite of passage.